Hello, YouTube. Welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. Yeah, so here it is on Batman. Dutch angle going here. Let me fix that a little bit. That's a little better. Let's see. Hang on. Sorry. Yeah, that's gonna have to do. So I hope everybody has been well. The wheels, the big wheels, they keep on turning. Ordered the present for Mike Rowe, as you may know, when we do the Destroy Mechanics thing. I wanted to give a present on behalf of the members, BillWhittle.com. So what I got was a gold-plated wrench set, which I thought was appropriate for Mike. So once that arrives, I think we're ready to book it and get going with it. Hang on. Yeah, so there's that. I took a look, based on that new schedule I mentioned. I set up for Major Mace Mattingly in the colonies, looked at a lot of the colonies, and a lot of the 3D work that's been done, and forgotten how good that is. So that was a kick getting back to that, and I just want to cut directly to the chase, and just get on with it. But a couple steps between that and this, so working as fast as I can here. I thought I'd take a minute here to talk about something, because hello from Spokane. I fly in and out of Spokane all the time. Keith, good to see you. Hang on a second. If they come, then run. Says, I'm all alone and I'm scared. Help me, Bill. Well, you're not all alone right now anyway. It's a little difficult to say if they come, then run. I'll just call you Run. If that's all right with you, Run. You're not alone right now anyway. That's the main thing. So we can pick that up a little later. Let me just tell you what's on the agenda here. I've been working on the next How to Beat Harris video, and I thought I'd have it done by now. But reason I haven't is because I'm taking a completely different topic. I thought I'd be dealing with trans issue next and stuff, but what seems to be the most topical aspect of this, and this has got something to do with entertainment. It's not so much a political thing as a what I found is when I talk about these things on the Stratosphere Lounge or Stratosphere Studio, talking about them helps me get these thoughts organized. So let me tell you what I've been working on. I have all the parts. I'm just trying to get them in the right order. So right now, the thing about Harris that's most striking is she's gone from having an approval rating of 28% as the vice president to suddenly being, on the election betting odds, which I put some confidence in, she's up 8 points on Trump. And how do you explain that? She's out there talking about the border, what she would do to secure the border if only she could be elected to government. And how do you explain that? How do you explain this unbelievable shift in perception? I don't think it'll last, but I actually think somebody needs to try and figure it out and try and explain it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call part 2 "The Madness of Crowds." I think it's Charles McKay. I can find out because I've been reading a lot lately. Sorry, 1 second. Come on. I'm virtually positive it's Charles McKay. Anyway, it's written in, I want to say in the late 1800s. Wrote a book called Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And so there's a kind of a sort of a mass insanity that's going on. I can't describe it any other way. So what basically I'm trying to say with this next video is this: there have been times when the population makes a shift, a big shift in opinion, and it looks insane. After it's over, it looks insane, and it can happen very fast. And two of the examples that he uses are the witch burning mania, but especially the Crusades. So I was reading about the Crusades for most of the day, and basically, you went from a standing start where the population was just doing their peasant thing, just down there in lovely filth, mining their potatoes and bowing to the lords, and all of a sudden along comes Peter the Hermit and preaches this military movement to recapture Jerusalem for the Christians. Now they've known that the Muslims had captured Jerusalem 300, 400 years earlier, but all of a sudden this guy comes in, and everybody like that decides that they want to join this crusade, and they start selling their all of their material possessions, including their houses, and they're getting 10 cents on the dollar for them. They don't care. They're filled with this religious fervor, and they're going to go and they're going to liberate the Crusades. And he said, in some cases, Charles McKay, thanks. In some cases, people in the morning would mock somebody, you've got to be out of your mind. You're selling everything and you're getting pennies on the dollar. Are you nuts? They would say that. He would say that in the morning, and by evening, the guy would have sold his own stuff, and he's on the way too. Everybody just started going. Everybody, hundreds of thousands of people just dumped everything. Anybody within the sound of this guy's voice. And this is where he got the title "Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds." He said humans throughout time have had moments where they acted as insane as a group, and I think this is something very much like that. Because you don't go from a 28% approval rating to be leading, overnight. So the question is, what's causing this madness of crowds? There's a term that I'm not going to use because it's been retracted by the person who came up with it. But basically, during the pandemic, I forget what his name was, one of the doctors who was initiated the RNA vaccines, who came out strong against the vaccine, used the term mass formation psychosis, and a number of people have criticized that term because they say the word psychosis it's not accurate to apply it to a group. So fair enough. I don't want to get shot down before I get a chance to finish speaking. So I'm not going to call it a mass formation psychosis. I'm going to call it a mass formation delusion. And basically, what he's saying is this. I've got some really good quotes from I think a Dutch or a Danish psychologist. But basically, what the psychologist said is that at times of anxiety, people tend to clump together in terms of their viewpoints. When the anxiety level is very high, as a defense mechanism, humans will clump together with other people of the same opinion. And that's called a mass formation. And the mass formation is an echo chamber. And the one thing you can't do to the mass formation is give them the other side of the argument, because that causes enormous psychological stress. They're under tremendous anxiety anyway. And so they go into this camp. And when they're in the camp, they feel much better because everybody agrees with them. And looking at the pandemic as an example, it became pretty clear fairly quickly that there were two mass formations that had occurred. One of them was the group of people that believed that the vaccination was the be-all and cure-all. That everything that Dr. Fauci said was gospel. That his personality was beyond reproach. That anybody who argued against the vaccines was an outsider, was a heretic, essentially. In fact, that's exactly what they were. They had the same reaction as somebody who was a religious zealot would have towards a heretic. They were heretical, and so that those people had to be killed, and the way you would do that is essentially to cancel them. That's what cancel culture is: canceling somebody in an information age. Canceling somebody in an information age, the same thing as killing them. Now, I'm not going to equate that with violence or anything, and I'm not going to go down that road. But essentially, guys like Stéphane Molyneux have been eliminated. And I haven't seen the offensive tranny for a long time either. So I suspect that Marcus got asked to leave the premises because he was speaking the truth. So here's kind of where I'm going with this. So that's mass formation, and then I need to make a shift back, and I talked about this experiment. I might have talked about it last Thursday, but I almost, did I write it down? I'll dig it up. I've got it at my fingertips. The psychological researcher, I want to say his name was Samuel Ash, but he's the guy who did the experiments with a certain length. And I got the story wrong. I'd said that he'd had a string on a board. What he actually had was, because I actually saw video of the actual experiments, and what it consisted of was there was one bar on one side, then over here were 3 bars, and which one was the same length, and it's clear. And this is the experiment where a person would go in. It wasn't 20 people, it was 7. And everybody except for the last guy was in on the experiment. So they'd all go in, and not only would they, this is critical, not only would they give the wrong answer, but they all gave the same wrong answer. And so by the time you get to the 7th guy, 75% of the time he gives a wrong answer too. And I've got this great interview with this psychologist who's talking about this, and he's saying, so that group of people, he said you can divide groups up into 3 people as a result of this experiment. There are the true believers, which in the case of the subject of the experiment would be the 6 other people that said, no, this one is shorter. Those would be the true believers. They're absolutely hypnotized, is his term, 100% hypnotized. He said, then come the groups middle, who, when they're confronted with this level of social proof, peer pressure, do one of 2 things. They either believe that maybe they are in fact crazy, that since everybody else agrees that these 2 unequal things are equal, maybe it's something with their perception, or they're just too shy or too unwilling to stand out in a crowd, and so they agree even though they know that it's wrong. And then the third group is the group of people who basically stand up and say, you're all idiots. I don't know what's going on here, but there's no question that this is true. So when you're dealing with mass formations, you've got the same thing going on. You got the true believers, the hypnotized people, on one end. On the other end, you have the heretics who say no, all the evidence points in the other direction. And then in the middle, you've got people who can be swayed either way. One of the things that's most interesting about that, I think it's Solomon Asch experiment, is that if one other person said that gave the correct answer, then the test subject would drop from 75% down to 10%. All they needed was somebody to tell them they weren't crazy. So here's how this whole thing kind of comes together as far as I think what we're seeing. So they tried to defame Donald Trump with the Russian collusion thing. Then they tried to impeach Donald Trump. Then they tried to impeach him again. Then they raided his house. Then they brought clearly ridiculous charges against him. Then they convicted him of the ridiculous charges. Then somebody took a shot at him. I'm not saying that they set up the shot, but I am saying there's no question that they allowed the security to be lax enough so somebody could take the shot. And then the question is, well, what else can they do to him? And I realized that this whole combination of big tech and deep space state and the media and everything has gone into this full court press of providing social proof that Kamala Harris is not a 28% failure, that Kamala Harris is the savior of the Democratic Party and democracy. And the hypnotized, the 1/3 that's hypnotized, is very happy about this because they were convinced that Biden was going to lose to Trump and lose big. So when they say that Harris is the new savior, they believe it. They genuinely believe it. They have no problem with that at all. They're 100% on board with this thing. The middle is people who are looking at the poll numbers and listening to all the news media and all the coverage that's treating her like she's the second coming. And they are sliding in that direction because that's where the social proof is. That's where everybody else in the room is doing this, so I suppose we should be doing this too. And of course, on the other end of it are the people who are essentially immune to social proof because, who would you rather believe, them or your own lying eyes? And we're the lying eyes people. And so it seems to me that that's pretty much a good definition of mass formation delusion, where the social proof that's being put out there by the Democrats and all of their allies, the social proof is so overwhelming. It's coming from every single quarter, and it's so overwhelming that it's pulling that middle third in their direction, and that middle third's what's making the difference. And that can be beaten by being the guy who stands up and says the truth. That's the kid at the end of the Emperor's New Clothes parade, and it's the person in the room as part of the experiment. If one of those 7 other test subjects gives the correct answer, then the chance of the test subject giving the correct answer goes way, way up. So what the psychologist basically said is, there's only one thing you can do about this, and that's to speak up. Because by speaking up, you're providing other people with an escape from the social proof that's telling them something that they know isn't true. They know it isn't true. So that's what I think is happening. I don't think it's sustainable, and I don't think, and I think they played the hand too early, frankly. If this had happened in October, I would be more concerned about it, because it is some form of mass formation delusion, where I'm looking at these numbers. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, how is it that the betting odds I have a lot of confidence in, because it's your money, right? Well, what's happening is that 1/3, that hypnotized third, plus all of the megaphones of the media and big tech and all of them, all of these people are suddenly saying, no, Harris is the savior. She's going to win. She's going to fix the border problem. And then they manipulate the polls, and then the polls manipulate the middle, and that those bettors are in the middle. Those bettors aren't part of they're not on either one of the polls, because this is the reason why they're betting. If they were sure that Harris was going to win, or sure that Trump was going to win, they wouldn't be betting. What's that? If it weren't for a difference of opinion, you wouldn't have a horse race. So I just think that they made this play too early, because these things are not permanent. Oh God, hang on a second. There's some child in here spamming the content section. Congratulations, like to play. Your cut and paste abilities are unmatched. Yeah, good. All these showing up on my thing as message deleted by Bill Whittle, and they're gone. Easy enough. Okay, so that's basically the premise, and the solution to this is, let me rephrase that. The objective of this, because these people are masters of psychology. I've known this. I've certainly known this since the pandemic. They're masters of psychology. So they understand these things very, very well, and they have the added benefit of getting real-time feedback in terms of their feedback loop. They have they've got big tech and all the other metrics of how well this is working, and they're able to look at people's emails and they're not reading your emails. They're reading everybody's emails, and so that's what I think is going on. They are making so much they're putting out so much social proof that it is forming a mass formation delusion, where everybody is going along with it because everybody else is going along with it. Now, is this sustainable? I don't think it is. For one thing, we're not in election season just yet. And that means the negative ads haven't begun. Now, here's, everybody talks about negative ads and how bad they are for the country, and they are. They're toxic. But that's been around since I've been around. So there it is. This is the part that I think is most hopeful about breaking this mass formation delusion. There is nothing that can be said about Donald Trump that hasn't been said already. Nothing. There's no dirt that they can throw. There's no mud that they can throw, rather, that will change the people who are going to vote for him mind. He can't get any muddier than he is. He's mud covered. There's nothing that can be done to him that isn't already done. Harris, on the other hand, is walking around in this white gown like she's this brand new creature that she just parachuted out of the heavens and so on. And when you start going negative on Harris, the most useful thing you have is Harris's own words. She's talking about eliminating ICE. She's talking about, easing restrictions on the border. We've got video of Border Patrol agents dismantling, barriers that the Texas National Guard put out, and so all of this stuff is going to start to get some traction. I've noticed the gap is closing. It seems to be closing a little bit. I'll just check it again real quick. But when I saw she was leading Trump, I just said, that's not possible. It's insane. And then when I realized insane, I thought, okay, let's have a look into when other people have gone insane. And that's what got me going down this path. So reason I haven't out, yeah. Okay, so that gap is closing. It's still 51.46, but she was up by 11 points at some time there. I don't know. When the last time I checked before Biden checked out, Trump had a 60-point lead. 60 points, not 6, 60. And then all of a sudden, Harris, who was a nothing burger and who couldn't be let loose, is now all of a sudden, the bee's knees. So that's basically the video, and it did help me to talk about it because, when you're trying to explain something, it helps to be able to kind of hash it out and try to explain it to people. But I think that's basically the form it's going to take. I'm just reading some of the comments here, which are usually very instructive. Yeah, so Harris is going to run on closing the border, and Harris is going to run on ending inflation, and it is as unbelievable as the witch story. This old woman here conjured up the hurricane that blew away everybody's houses. It's insanity, is what it is, and people like us look at this and we simply just can't. We just can't believe it. We just can't believe that they would have the nerve, just the nerve, to say these things, and then it's like, well, this is what's going to happen. This is what happens when all of the social proof is. I mean, like, there's never been a time in human history where the power of social proof has been so great. This is why social media is so destructive, because it magnifies the power of social proof. And it used to be, if you did something that other people didn't like, you might have face the opprobrium of 4 or 5 people, maybe your family, a couple friends. Now you've got 5 million people telling you that they hope you run off and die. And anyway, that's what I think is happening, and that's kind of where I think I'm going to be going. So other than that, I think it's the only explanation I could think of. And I remember what I was going to say. You would think that the goal of this is to get Harris elected, and that is in fact the end goal. But you would think that the tactic is that all of these numbers and stuff are saying that people are voting for Harris. That's not what those numbers mean. What they're trying to do, this is the objective, is they're trying to get conservatives in a state of despair and resignation. That's the objective. They know that if we come out and force that nobody's going to buy this stuff that they've got. So what they're doing now is they're trying to convince us that country's lost, there's no sense in voting, all of that stuff. And none of those things are true. So my experience with the left has been that their product is so bad, it's so anti-reality, anti-truth, not just untruthful, it's anti-truthful, is that nobody wants it. And since nobody wants it, they've become masters at, number one, convincing you it's something else, and number two, convincing you that it's pointless to fight. This is what they're doing. And this is Sun Tzu, right? I mean, the ultimate victory is the victory where you don't have to fight at all. You just get the enemy to surrender, and you don't take any losses, and all the buildings are intact, and that's it. So this is the thing we need to be aware of, is what's going on, what this tactic is, why they're doing it, and realize that the goal is our disillusionment, our despair, our resignation, our unwillingness to fight back, and mostly to give us the sense of the inevitability of defeat. And there you go. The worst part, Eric Blake says, the worst part is you got David French writing a New York Times article about endorsing Harris because Orange Man bad. Okay, well, who's David French and what's the New York Times? So we'll see. But come the fall, we can't make accusations. We have to show them publicly doing this. We have to show her saying, no, I think we need to cut back on police departments. No, I think we should open the border. All of these things that she said in the past, we've got her on camera. That's a really valuable thing to have. I heard that the Trump team ran already the thing I was talking about in the first one. You're the most liberal member of the Senate. No, oh no. You just got to show it. I think if I could make one political ad for Donald Trump, it would be to interview the guys that she kept in prison beyond their release dates when she was Attorney General of Florida. Not just name it, not just say it, not just say that she did it. Tulsi Gabbard destroyed her, I think it was Tulsi, during the 2020 primaries. She just destroyed her, and it took her 2 minutes saying, this is what you did when you were Attorney General, and you kept these people locked up after the prison terms, and she just was over, just done. So instead of talking about it, we need to see it. I want to see the people that she held in prison. I want to hear from them personally. I want their faces. Sorry, my glasses on. Oh, Lady Janie Waterman, hey. But Bill, does anyone care that she lies? That's what worries me. Well, here's the thing. 1/3 of the country cares that she lies. 1/3 of the country doesn't care that she lies. She's got a D beside her name, and that's good enough for them. And in the middle are the people who care that she lies if they can be shown that she lies. But they've got to be shown. They can't be told. This is the thing that is so important that I just keep coming back to, is you can't make the assertion, and you don't have to make the assertion. Did I say Attorney General? I thought I said Attorney General of California. Apparently, I said something else. Oh no, I meant to say Attorney General of California. You cannot expect to move people's opinions by telling them. You've got to show them. You've got to show them. And this is why interviewing those men is so important. Absolutely have to show it. So I said Attorney General of Florida. My God, what a horrible mistake. I'm sorry about that. That was inexcusable. So anyway, that's what that's about. So I don't know if I'll get that done tonight, but I'm sure I'll get it tomorrow at the latest. Said that Trump will be working with Tulsi Gabbard for debate prep. Yeah. Can I get them on my platform? The problem with that is that I don't know how to get them on my platform. I wouldn't know how to find their names. Getting their names and getting in touch with them and setting up Zoom calls and all that other, I just don't have the resources for that. Daily Wire does, the Trump campaign does. All I'm trying to do here is trying to, just kind of light a candle just to sort of show the way. It's it's so obvious to me, and Trump usually gets it, but I think you can't just show that she's lying. You have to show that she's lying, and then you have to kind of put the knife in and give it a twist. You got to show that she's lying, and the twist is that there's nothing there. That we've had 4 years of a nothing there president, and if you want to continue with the men in the Olympics competing as women, and the inflation, and the loss of jobs, and the foreign affairs catastrophes and all the rest of it, then this is what you get. Got a comment here that says Trump should announce that he has a cabinet position for Tulsi or Nikki so that they can act as surrogates. Nikki Haley has the same plumbing and ethnicity as the Chemistar without the Marxism growing up. Yeah, I don't think Vance was his best choice as a VP. He was certainly the best choice as a backup, but I would have gone with a woman. And you could say, well, that's identity politics. It's like, yes, it is, but the difference is that our women are actually extremely capable. And Tulsi's been in the Army for 25 years in the reserves, and Carrie Lake and all of these other people. I think it was picking somebody who was so much like him was not. I just didn't think it was the best play. But not that I have anything against J.D. Vance. I'm just saying that most people don't listen to these things; they just see a picture, and I don't know. I would have done something different, but we'll see. In any event, the gap is closing. It was at one point 13 or 14 points, which I was just absolutely amazed about. But that's the thing that seems to be most contemporary and newsworthy about it. So that's what I plan to do next. So I expect I'll have it by tomorrow if I don't have it by tonight. Eric says, honestly, if Trump had picked Tulsi, it would have been a genius play for the I didn't leave the Democratic Party left me. Yes. And you get the woman on the ballot. Yes. And all of that stuff. It was the and you get the Army experience, military experience. It was just, I know you get that with Vance, but it was like a golden apple to me. But we'll see. We'll see. In the YouTube comments we've got from Don Willis, Trump, Dana Lash in 2028. Trump's going to be a little older than 2028. Yeah, and Eric says Vance's assassination insurance. Well, given what we've seen and the extent of the malfeasance in terms of protecting Trump, that kind of insurance is maybe the primary motivator of that. So it's kind of interesting to game that out about how that would play out, but I don't know. I was a little surprised, and anyway, that's beside the point. That's who we have, and that's who we're gonna go with. I'm sure he can. Well, as if to offset that, I think that Harris made the dumbest choice she could possibly have made. I mean, that was without question was just much worse choice than J.D. Vance. So we'll see. I think the single most important endorsement and what am I trying to say here? The biggest unknown in this is Elon Musk's enthusiastic conversion. He is a tremendously influential person. I know that the hypnotized people, so for the sake of it, there's 1/3 of the population that's hypnotized. There's 1/3 that's susceptible to hypnosis, and there's another third that just is got the strength of character to look at the facts. And he has all the people who were hypnotized turned on him once he left their mass formation. But there's still a gigantic middle of the country that find him to be an incredibly influential and important guy. And the fact that the guy who manufactures, all of these electric cars and is talking about, the future as if it's someplace you want to live. The fact that he's not just kind of behind Trump, but like solidly behind Trump, I think that's really important. And freeing up Twitter is hugely important. Somebody in the comments says that Musk said today he's open to a role in the administration. I have a role for Elon Musk in the administration. I'd make him the administrator of NASA. That's what I would do. Can you imagine? Musk is too busy to do it, but just the beauty of that would just the beauty of it would be to see him as the administrator of NASA, and it's like, when do we get our next license to launch? It's already approved. I've pre-approved the next 400 launches. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Some people saying Secretary of State. I bet you anything if you made him Secretary of the Treasury, this government would run at a profit in 2 years. So, we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, that's basically the story problem that I wanted to talk about and get done with. So, I think we'll just go to the questions if you don't mind. I was looking at a lot of those renderings that I've done, test renderings on the colonies, and I forgot how good that stuff is. And I'm going to be doing some tests. The problem with Mace Mattingly is that the helmet, the suit and the body get a motion control file, but the head gets a different one. That's the head and the face are combined, and so he's got a tight-fitting Mercury helmet, and his head is turning inside the helmet, and that helmet should turn with the head, which means I think I need to copy his head keyframes and copy and paste them onto the helmet keyframes, and I think that'll solve the problem. But I'm anxious to check that out, test it out. Anyway, that's where we are. So let's see what we got here. Here we go. Member forum by Roadrunner. Thank you, Roadrunner. Appreciate it very much. It's coming through now, Con. By the way, I don't know. Somebody in the comment section tell me here. I just checked earlier today, and the Tim Waltz, a fascist and a communist, is at 25,000 views, which for us is, four times what we normally get. Did somebody link to it? I was shocked to see that. Pleased, but shocked. So let's see. We got, here's a name I don't see too often. We got a Rodney Rowe, Janie Waterman, Jacob Belchek, another Jacob Belchek, Chris Taylor, Eric Blake. Yeah, we can do those. Chris Elisar says, Bill, is Mace Mattingly any relation to Matt Mason? Is Major Mace Mattingly related to Major Matt Mason? The guys in the white, yellow, blue, and red spacesuits? No. Live in a hexagonal space station on the moon? No, it's an absolute coincidence. Because if it was Major Matt Mason, that'd be a copyright violation. Just sheer coincidence. Thank you. David Vandervoort wants to know if I still consider my True Story of the Atomic Bombs my best work. No. It's nice that my first work is not my best work, because I carried it around forever. My best work may be Empire of Terror, but I'll tell you what my favorite work is, and I still think it's probably the best work I did, and that's Apollo 11, what we saw, because that was, I could have fun with that one. I wasn't talking about, executions and mass murder, and reading about it for 8 months, 9 months, just finally got, well, took a lot of that with me when I left it, and the Apollo 11 one we saw, I think probably 5 or 6 times. I've sat down to watch the first couple minutes of it and ended up watching the whole first hour. So, yeah, I was really, really happy with how that came out. All right, here we go from Rodney Rowe here. Hail, Bill. Hail. You always talk about how sovereign citizens don't know the Constitution, but it's worse than you think. They don't believe in the legitimacy of the Constitution. They believe in the Articles of Confederation. There's a debate to be had about how the Articles were replaced, but they think it's a legal loophole to follow the Articles. Yeah, that's what they always seem to think. It's a loophole. That's why they refer to driving as traveling, always demand only to speak with the sheriff, claim they don't need paperwork because they're not a corporation, etc. That's all language from the Articles. P.S. Please use your sway to get the Daily Wire to use their sway to get you on Timcast to push Empire of Terror. Also, it would be so good for your channel and your visibility. Yeah, it's just unfortunate timing that Empire of Terror came out right in the middle of the Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro blow up, and week after week went by, and they were just their attention was fixed somewhere else. But I will see what they can do about that. Also, please check Rumble Studio. It's free and allows you to stream to all platforms: YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and more. And it's Boomer certified. All right. Scott Adams uses it and claims it's easy. You can turn off streams on and off with a click of a button. I will take a look at that. I will in my voluminous free time. But it sounds good, and I've heard good things about it, so I'll give it a peek if I can. I upload everything to Rumble anyway, and I can take a look at it while it's uploading. So we'll see. From Janie Waterrun, hi, how's Bean and the family? Bean is doing just fine. He's just healthy as can be, and he's a good cat. My question is about Oppenheimer. I've seen the movie about 8 times now, a few times in Spanish, and because of Clavin's comments on it months ago, I've been interpreting it through a different lens than Nolan masterfully creates for us to look through. Whether or not you've seen the movie, what can you say about Oppenheimer as the honest historian you are? Thank you, Janie. Thank you, Janie. I have not seen the movie. Historically, I'll just tell you the first thing that comes to mind. From what I understand of the history, Oppenheimer is the Hamlet of nuclear scientists. He's a guy who was so important and so key to making that bomb work, and then when he got it working, he had second thoughts, and obviously, behold, I am, is it Death Destroyer of Worlds? It seems to me that if you're going to be morally opposed to this, you should be morally opposed to it before you start working on it. I think it's a bit disingenuous to have the intellectual curiosity to see if we can build one of these things, and then you build it, and then you detonate it, and then you start worrying about the consequences of this. That just seems a little easy, convenient for me. It is. There was at the time of the Manhattan Project, there was a slim chance that was discussed. For now, I am become Death, the Destroyer of Worlds. Thank you, Janie. So there was a discussion before they detonated the Trinity tests. That bomb's name was Gadget, where they said there was some people thought there was a possibility it might ignite the atmosphere and set the atmosphere on fire. In fact, I think the pilot of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea is about that, where in the movie where the atmosphere is on fire. I don't know if it's because, the Krakatoa explosion, I don't know how many orders of magnitude greater than Gadget was, but we've been through a lot more than that, although I don't know if that information was available to them at the time. What I like to contrast this with is Oppenheimer's reticence with the guys that are working on AGI, artificial general intelligence, self-aware AGI. I listened to a long half hour, 40 minutes on this, where a number of people are convinced we're going to get there by 2027 at the latest. They're spending trillions of dollars on this. And he was saying, among other things, we need to get this first because whoever has superintelligence has an incredible military advantage. And I actually believe that's true. I was thinking that we could, if we weren't so, I don't know what the word is. I almost said power mad. I mean, AI could be, as Washington said, it's like it's like fire is a tremendous servant but a terrible master. And when I think about the benefits that non-general AI could bring, things like diagnosis and so on. I mean, diagnosing medical procedures and having AI looking at MRIs and that kind of thing. I think they probably beat human doctors in terms of detecting things like that. But no, we're not. That these people who are going after that are not interested in that. They want. I can't think of any. Let me rephrase this. When I hear the people that are doing the leading research on AGI, on artificial general intelligence, self-aware AI, they're saying that we started out with ChatGPT-2, which was like the equivalent of an elementary school kid. Where we are now is the equivalent of a high schooler. We're rapidly approaching the intelligence level of a college graduate, and I assume we're talking about old school. But they said the singularity is when AGI gets smart enough to be an AI researcher. And then, this is called the singularity because you can't see past it. Once the AI, according to them, gets smart enough to do research on AI, then it's just a recursive exponential loop where you've got an AI bot that's smarter than humans. It creates the next generation of hardware and algorithms, which is even smarter than it is, and it develops something even smarter. Once you get to the point where something's smarter than you are, even a little smarter than you are, you are no longer in control of your own destiny. The difference, 20 IQ points is the difference between a normal person and a person who's functionally retarded. And this idea that we can somehow control something that is that, I've talked about this before. I don't want to waste too much time on it because I've talked about it many times before. But the assumption is always so amazing to me that these people, these emotional people that are creating this research for an emotional reason, because everybody does everything for an emotional reason. I want to know this. I would like to know this. Make me feel good to do this. The idea that these super intelligent creations are going to pick up where they left off with their same motivations is inconceivable to me. I heard somebody say something about AI movies, and they said they're so creepy. We've shown a couple of those on this show. But basically, one person said that they're so inhuman that it made him believe in a soul because finally he got to see artwork created by something that has no soul. And I thought that was really, profoundly good. Something else I thought was profoundly good, it was somehow stumbled upon a Partridge Family clip, and some guy in the clip said, it was much better being 20 in the 70s than it is being 70 in the 20s, and I thought, amen to that. That's the truth. But my point in terms of tying it back to Oppenheimer is that the people who are doing the AI research are not only saying there's a chance that this could happen, they're saying there's a likelihood that it could happen. And a lot of them are saying it. And some people have quit, like OpenAI company, because they're not OpenAI anymore. And some people have walked out because they said they all know, what's going to happen. But they keep going anyway with the hope that they can somehow contain it. And even if we could contain it, I'm not convinced that China would be able to contain it. I'm not convinced China's capable of containing um, gain of research function on viruses. So um, logic says there's no self-aware AI. It's all still input-output with no conceivable change. I agree. I have yet to see anything creative in AI, but at the very least, if you think about like drone swarms or something, a really, really good AI, even if it's not genuinely self-aware, the amount of flexibility and just real-time data processing of the battle space is it gives you a really it gives you something to worry about. I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that what the researchers are saying is that we're going to find out pretty soon, like within the next 2 or 3 years, and that this research, this put out by this paper, this research should be considered national security research. That they're just constantly releasing all their papers like it's a scientific endeavor, and we didn't do that during the Manhattan Project. We didn't just say here's our latest results with trying to get this explosion timed exactly right so we can implode this plutonium sphere, because if it's not to the, I don't know if it's the microsecond or the millisecond, but those charges all have to fire at the same exact time, and they have to calculate the time it takes for the electricity to go from one end of the sphere to the other as far as the cable's concerned. And so if they don't get that exactly right, you don't get the implosion. And that was apparently the difficulty with the plutonium bomb. The uranium bomb was just a bullet. They just took a big hunk of uranium and shot it at another hunk of uranium, and they were convinced that would create critical mass. So they didn't even have to test Little Boy. But Fat Man had to be absolutely perfect and make it perfect with stone knives and bearskins. They didn't have computers that would do this. They had to think of mechanical switches that would take into account the length of the cable, which is traveling pretty near the speed of light, if I remember correctly. So that ability to get all of those charges to explode at the same time, all the wires coming out of Gadget, they all had to, when I say they all had to go off at the same time, they all had to explode at the same time, but the signal to the farther ones had to be sent, a couple of microseconds earlier. So as far as Oppenheimer goes, he's a big hero to the left because he's considered to be, like a man of conscience who early on wanted to save us from this terrible destructive force, and as I said, well, if he was a man of conscience, he would have done it before he got a chance to play with his toys. And secondly, I don't have the slightest second guesses about nuclear weapons. There's no question that somebody's going to get nuclear weapons, and I'm glad it was us. And a number of left-wingers in America, not to mention the Soviets, were one of the reasons why there was so much spying going on the part of the American scientists who had communist leadings. A number of them justified this by saying one country shouldn't have all of that power, that you should have essentially a balance of terror where we've got the bomb and the Soviets have the bomb. And I say, no. They're a mass murdering, authoritarian, collectivist nightmare, and we are free people of independent citizens, and no, they should not have had the bomb. There would have been no Cold War. There would have been no communist China or communist Vietnam. We would have skipped that whole period, and they would have gone right into where they are today, which is happy capitalists. Fought a war in Vietnam for 11 years to convince these people that Ho Chi Minh was a crazy guy with a really, really bad idea, and 58,000 dead Americans later, they want to make money. Just imagine my shock. So anyway, hopefully that answered your question as best I could. Here we go. Jacob Belchuk. Hail Bill. Hail Jacob. A bit of personal question this evening, so please feel free to kick me to the curb if I'm probing too deeply or if this is too political for Mondays. You may have noticed that I like worldview questions, which is hard to extract from politics, and for which I beg your pardon. Well, I absolve thee. From the stories you told about your childhood, you've described an environment that seems relatively conservative, at least in the way your father ran his hotels. Your early Bermuda schooling sounds like it was enormously more philosophically conservative than the modern American schoolchild, without question. How does that kid become the guy who passionately believed in things he knew nothing about? Social proof. I'll come back to that. As a corollary, I'm also curious if you noticed a correlation between your own political and religious journey and your satisfaction in life. There are statistics, for whatever these are worth, that suggest that right-leaning politics and religious belief, in particular regular Christian church attendance, correlate highly with an improved sense of well-being. This was particularly apparent during the heights of the unknown virus of unspecified origin. Yeah. It's perfectly clear to me, for example, having followed you for as long as I have, that married Bill is significantly happier than unmarried Bill. This isn't a surprise to me, as I believe that marriage would be a gift to man by our Creator, which also helps explain why the current godless culture we live in says that any kind of human interaction is fine as long as it's not faithful monogamy, which is weird. Trademark. Have you noticed a change in your sense of well-being as you move away from the materialist position of youth? Not to mention that you should believe things that make you feel good. I think it's worth believing in things that make you feel less insane. Wow, your thoughts. That's a lot of thoughts. First of all, yes, you're right about the schooling and the background. My dad was a rock solid conservative and was the kind of rock solid conservative that I'm grateful to say never talked politics among us. All I can remember about him politically is him cursing Howard, who was Dean? What was Dean's first name in the Watergate scandal? For being a traitor to Nixon. He valued loyalty a lot, my dad. The schooling would absolutely be considered extremely conservative by today's standards. In fact, anything would be considered conservative by today's standards. John Dean, thanks. So Howard Dean, John Dean, Howard Dean, John Dean. I'm going to go with John. Anyway, so how did I get to be so wrong when I was in college? Well, like I said, it was part of it was social proof. Most of it was social proof. Everybody I was around believed the same things that I did, and so I believed those things. I think a lot of it also, and I think we're wired for this. In fact, this is what surprises me so much about Gen Z. You know, when you're very little, you know, once you're cognizant, 3 years old, 4 years old, something like that, right up until around age 10 or 11 or something, you're a learning sponge. You're biologically wired to learn things. And because you're biologically wired to learn things, you'll believe anything. I used to hide underneath the couch pillows in the living room, and my mom would come in and say, "Has anybody seen where Billy is?" And there would be this gigantic, lump where I'm underneath the pillows, and she pretended that she couldn't see me, so I believed that she couldn't see me. Old Kris Kringle is related to this. You believe anything when you're a little kid because you don't have the luxury of doubting things. Your entire purpose at that age is to soak up as much information as possible. Biologically, that's what you're wired to do. So as a young kid, you believe anything that you're told, especially with authority. And that's how you believe a jolly old elf can go up a chimney. And I believed it, and I'm very, very glad I did. Very glad I did. Nothing pisses me off more than parents that shoot down that theory for their children. If you still believe it that at a certain age, you might want to look at some therapy. But right around age 15 or 16, you're wired to disagree with your parents. If you weren't, then kids would never leave the house. This is all biology. I mean, it's the biology of psychology. But right at that age, at that college age, two things happen. First of all, you want to get the hell out of the house. And for many of us, that meant going to college. And then once you get to college, you start interacting with and hearing opinions that you didn't hear when you were at home because they're people different than your parents. And some of these ideas sound good and seem to make sense. And so you get the sense that because you hadn't heard it before, your stupid parents didn't know about this stuff. You do because you're a college-educated genius, but your parents didn't know anything about the real meaning of communism and Marxism because they never supported it and never told you about it other than to say it was bad. And now you hear some professor talking about how fair it is and how good it is, and you start to think, yeah, the problem is that I see things. I see many more things than my parents ever thought. So obviously, I'm smarter than they are. I think it was Twain who said something to the effect of, I saw my dad when I was 16, and then when I caught up with him again 15 years later, I couldn't believe how much smarter he had become. But it's important to say that when I was liberal in college, and that I believed things I passionately believed things I knew nothing about, I was always pro-military, and I was always pro-business. A lot of other filmmaking kids wanted grants. I didn't want a grant. I wanted investors. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I never lost that. I never lost my love of country. I never thought America was a bad place. I'd always believed, even in the midst of all of this, that America was just the best place in the world. And but basically, the social proof was when, like, for example, I remember very clearly when Reagan was elected, I was actually in a show. I've only been on stage in 2 shows. One of them was Man of La Mancha, where I was a spear carrier, and the other one was You Can't Take It With You, where I had the romantic lead in that, strangely enough. And we were backstage in You Can't Take It With You, and I think showtime was at 8, and about 10 minutes to 8 Eastern time, this stage manager comes in crying and says, "It's all over. Reagan's won the election. Carter's conceded. The Soviet missiles are probably already on their way." And that made sense to me because Reagan was talking tough. And I thought that if you talk tough, you're looking to pick a fight. I didn't realize that talking tough would be the way to prevent a fight because I didn't know any history. There is a simplistic logic to progressivism that is appealing for people who are simplistic and just starting out with life. As I've said before, it takes a while for life to beat the stupid out of you. And some of these ideas, for example, are that the Soviets are just like us. So if you're friendly to the Soviets, they'll be friendly to you. But if you're mean to the Soviets, then they're going to launch their weapons. And it turned out the Soviets are not just like us. And Reagan understood this, and I didn't. It's a perpetual belief among the left that if you give poor people money, they won't be poor anymore. That's clearly not the case. That's a much, much deeper problem than that. And the same thing for free healthcare. Healthcare should be free to everybody. It's like there's no such thing as free healthcare. If there was free healthcare, I'd be in favor of free healthcare. But there is no free healthcare. It's expensive. And so, oh my gosh, John Eden again with a $99 super chat. I'm just speechless, John. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I've got some other super chats to catch up on it. So all of this stuff is simplistic. And because it's simplistic, when you reach that age where you're trying to break away from your parents, you feel biologically that you need to break away from your parents. You tend to believe something new. A great example of like the simplicity of the argument is, and I've been on my horse about this for the longest time, is regarding abortion. The left, which has tremendous rhetorical intelligence, has basically said this is a pro-choice issue. And I'm completely in favor of choice. I don't think the government should be telling people what to do with their own bodies. I think it's got no business telling them what to do with their own bodies. I don't like them telling me I have to get an injection that I don't want to get, and the government should not be telling people what to do with their own bodies. And that's how the left presents it. No one can tell me what to do with my own body. And I just want to say I couldn't agree more. The problem is, it's not your body. It's in your body, but it's not your body. It's got its own DNA. It often has a different blood type. But when we allow them to control the rhetoric, we allow them to control the battlefield. And we don't simply stop the discussion right at the point we should stop the discussion, which is, no, I'm 100% pro-choice. Couldn't agree more. No one should tell you what to do with your body. We're not talking about your body. We're talking about a completely separate set of DNA. And it didn't get into your body by itself. It's not an appendage. It's not an organ. It's not cells that you have. It's unique. And it's not you. And I could take a cell from you and a cell from that fetus and send it to any lab in the world completely anonymously, and they will tell you instantly that it's not the same person. So we lose because we agree to the rhetoric, we agree to the language. We try to counter pro-choice with pro-life, which is better than anti-choice. But they're both advertising terms. We're talking about abortion, and calling it pro-choice is putting an advertising spin on things, same as pro-life. It's childish. So there's a lot of things that are presented in such a way as to seem reasonable and logical, but you really have to really get into some degree of reality. For example, I'll give you another example. The appeal to releasing criminals, which I was somewhat subjective to, was that these are disadvantaged people, and the short form of the way the argument was portrayed, the short form was that they were stealing bread for their families. That's basically how it's presented. That that they start out with this tremendous disadvantage, and all they're trying to do is make a living and so on. Then one night I was in my house where I was roommates with the 3 other actors, and my window was right here, and I hear this noise, and I turn around, and there's a guy with his head in my window. And I thought, well, now. So he ran away, and I realized this guy was there to take the television, and he wasn't going to go and bribe, and he wasn't going to go buy bread for his family with that television, because this guy was too young to have a family. And that's when I started to realize, that this thing is not so easy as this. This guy wasn't taking my stuff. It wasn't even my stuff. It was my dad's television. We really need to be specific about it. But those are the kind of things where you realize, no, this is not Robin Hood. This is not a guy who's trying to feed his family. This is a guy who's willing to take my stuff, and certainly on some occasions, I'm not saying on that occasion, but certainly on some occasions, prepared to do me serious, if not fatal harm, in order to take my stuff, so that he can go get a hit. And this is, I'm not in favor of this. So all of the liberal and progressive philosophy is wrapped up in making you feel empathy for people who don't really deserve empathy. I'm not unsympathetic to the plight of people that are born in inner city Baltimore, let's say. I'm not unsympathetic to that at all. But I'm also not naive enough to say you can go in there and distribute college education money, that the pathology is much, much, much deeper than that, much deeper. The social proof is much deeper than that. If I were to try and solve the poverty problem, the best thing you could do would be to disperse poor people amongst people who could function. Not just poor people, but, it's dysfunction. There's a guy, a liberal, a San Francisco liberal, who went and just decided he was going to sell everything and live in the projects for 2 or 3 years. And I read his account of this, and he was in really life-threatening places, really in the projects, really like this white liberal guy living in some really rough neighborhoods. And he said, just one example that I remember is so clear, he said some family had found a couch on the side of the road, so it was a better couch than the one they had, so they brought this couch up to their room, and they took the old couch and moved it into the hallway, and that's where they left it. And that for months, people had to step over this couch. You had to get up on it, walk over the couch to get to the other end of the hallway. And put aside the fire and everything, but the fact that nobody did anything about it, that the people who moved the couch up hadn't the slightest notion of moving the old couch out. And more disturbingly, was the idea that everybody else was willing to go to the trouble of walking over this couch, and nobody was prepared to fix the couch, fix the problem. This was my first big realization as a conservative. Is not that it's not like there's anything wrong with those people. There's nothing wrong with third world people who have lived in the same village for generations, and a sewer runs right down the middle of the village. So I learned from P.J. O'Rourke. You know, P.J. O'Rourke said any American man could see that, and he said, give me $200 and an hour at Home Depot, and we will solve this problem forever. We'll just get some PVC piping, we might get a little pump, and we've got a water well right there, and we'll fix this problem, and it'll be fixed forever. So why don't they do it? And the thing I realized is they didn't do it because there's something wrong with them. There's something different with us. This is that by any objective look at humanity, people leave couches in hallways, and people continue to live next to sewers because it either doesn't dawn on them, or I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but it's we are unique in the sense of doing that. I think his name was Pierre Boulez, if I'm got that right. He wrote Bridge on the River Kwai, and he was, for those of you who are not familiar with the story of the movie, that's basically the story of a bunch of British prisoners of war who were being brutalized by the Japanese, and the Japanese force marched them out to build this bridge, based on a true story, and the British decided that as a way to show not only their dignity but their superiority over the Japanese would just go out there and lash bamboo together, and it would survive 2 or 3 train passages, then it'd fall down, then they go do it again. So the British prisoners decided that they were going to show these Orientals, how to do it. So they went out and measured the density of the sand and figured out what the loads they could take and how deep the pilings had to go and all the rest of it. But what the author said that was so meaningful to me, it stuck with me forever, was he said, because they were Westerners, he said they built the bridge in their mind before they built the bridge. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. They built it in their mind. So they had all these different kind of experts, and they did blueprints. And then people would come in and analyze the blueprints. And guys who may have had some experience with mining or whatever would say, this soil's not going to take that load, I'm just telling you. So then they'd go out and test it. They'd do like a scale model and see how much weight this thing could take based on the sandy, terrain that they were trying to sink the pilings in, and all the rest of it. So they built the bridge in their head before they ever built the bridge out in the real world. And they also built the method of building the bridge. In other words, they knew what had to be there first. They knew that before you could lay the planking, you had to get the foundation poles in. And so that was part of building the bridge in their mind, was what has to happen first, and then what happens second, and who do we need to do those things second, and what will we need in order to do those things in order. So this kind of thinking is new to humanity. It's new, and it's rare, and it's pretty much exclusively a product of the West. The first non-Western people to really copy Western thinking were the Japanese, who did it very, 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 very well. Which just goes to show you it's not a race thing or an IQ thing. It's a set of instructions, cultural instructions. The Japanese saw what Western weapons did and just decided to go and build those things. And next thing you know, they're taking on the world. And after the war, instead of, as China seems to do, instead of just building cheap stuff and ripping people off, they built the cheap stuff until they had the factory capacity to start building good stuff. Then they start building the best stuff in the world. And then all of a sudden, it's like they're showing us how to build cars. So they were tremendous engineers once they were liberated from their Asian philosophy of, Bushido and all the rest of it. Once MacArthur came in there and dictated a constitution to them, it's like you've seen the benefits of Western weaponry. Now here's your chance to see the benefits of an open society, and the Japanese just took to it and ended up in a very short period of time, 20, 30 years, teaching us how to do it. And so this is a way of thinking. It's a way of behaving. And the essential quality of Western thinking is that it understands that long-term gain is greater than short-term gain. And so we will make short-term sacrifices in order to get the long-term benefits. I found an example of the opposite kind of thinking when I went down to Mexico many years ago. Went down to Cabo San Lucas, and I sat on the beach, and I'm trying to look at the waves and relax, and an endless supply of Mexican salesmen would park themselves right in front of me in the view and try to sell me all these trinkets and coconut things and all the rest of it. And it really took pretty much all of the fun out of it. And I remember thinking, I'm never coming back here again. And then I realized that these people, for whatever reason, but mostly because they were in dire straits, and I understand that too, but they took the short-term gain of wanting to get, $8 of mine against the long-term loss of me not coming back there and spending, a couple thousand again. And this is one of the qualities of the third world, is this unwillingness to postpone short-term gains in order to get long-term gains. And the Japanese had the societal discipline to pick that up and run with it. The Chinese don't seem to. They certainly have built this second biggest economy in the world, but they're doing things that the Japanese didn't do. The Japanese were building superior products. The Chinese are building inferior products, and their entire sales strategy is, we'll make this so cheap that when Americans get it and realize it doesn't work, it's too much trouble to get a refund. That's essentially my experience with Chinese products. Is the stuff is garbage, and it's so cheap that it doesn't make any sense to go after your money. So basically what the Chinese model is, they're like used car salesmen that are trying to sell you the undercoating. Here's, pay us an extra $600 for this undercoating, and pressuring people into buying the undercoating, which does nothing. And so what the car salesman ends up doing is he ends up getting another $400 or $500, but he pisses off his clients so much that they never come back again. You occasionally hear of car salesmen who basically say, listen, I want to sell you a car, but I also want to sell you a car for the rest of your life, and I want to sell your kids' cars. So I'm going to treat you as fairly as I can, and I hope that'll work out that way. That's long-term thinking. George in the Twitch comment mentioned tofu construction. It's called tofu dreg. All of these Japanese skyscrapers are built out of sand. All of their roads are collapsing. Their bridges are collapsing. There's no limit to the number of videos that are made. There's one where there's a series of posts on the side of a bridge, and they're linked by a chain, and this person pushes one post over. Thing's about, halfway up your thigh. Guy knocks one of them over, and it pulls the next one and the next one, and just unzips. It just unzips all the way. It's just Chinese. Their problem is that their margins are so thin because the Communist Party takes so much of the money, that their margins are so thin that the only way they can make a profit is to skimp on materials. And so you'll see things like there'll be a concrete foundation being poured for a building, and you'll see people putting glass bottles in there underneath the rebar. And the rebar you can often bend, by the way. And you'll see them putting in these glass bottles, and you think, what the hell is going on? You realize the glass bottles don't cost them anything, and what the glass bottles do is it displaces volume, so you don't have to use so much cement. Cement's expensive. And you just think, my God. But the number of people who bought these apartments that they've spent their entire life savings on, they go to these buildings and they just grab the wall, and the wall just comes off in chunks. It's like sandstone. And their entire economy just seems to be copying technology, which is certainly quicker than developing yourself. But if you do nothing but copy, you're always going to be a generation behind. So, and they graduate more engineers than we graduate students, and those are highly educated people, and we should be damn worried about that. But they also have a culture where conformity is not only prized but demanded and accepted. So the idea that you would just go off and start your own company is inconceivable to most of these Chinese businessmen. In fact, it's not just inconceivable, it's impossible. The idea of a startup in China, that's not approved by the Chinese Communist Party and who hasn't approved the funding, you just don't get these kind of things like SpaceX or Boom or Anduril or any of these guys. So, they've got a lot more engineers than we do, but at the point of the spear, no one can do what we're doing. That's not to say we shouldn't be worried about our educational system. On the contrary, it's a catastrophe. But those are just cultural differences that they won't overcome, and certainly won't overcome until they get rid of that government of theirs. Anyway, back to the the happiness thing. Yeah, I don't know what really to say about that. It just makes you a bigger person. It's a very confined space being a materialist. You're contained in this material world that is defined by what you can see or sense, and you're contained in a world that basically has you in it and only you in it, and so it's you don't get any bigger than you are, and it's just it's a whole nother world. Let's see what we got here. Jacob Belchik. Again, we're happy to do them because we're kind of a short lead tonight. Hey, Bill, my insurance policy, in case you check my first question. I would be delighted to take a second. As an amateur fiction writer, one of the things that's most fascinating to me about storytelling is the degree to which the creator is allowed to lie to the audience. Now, that's a profound observation. Give a guy the proportionate strength of a spider, no problem. That will never pass any kind of biological muster whatsoever, because the ultimate strength of human muscles is based on carbon-carbon bonds, and no amount of radioactive spider bites are going to change that. Not a soul in the audience for a Spider-Man movie cares. Let me just interrupt by saying that one of the many points of my kind of education where I just went, oh, wow, was when somebody with an engineering background said that if you took a spider and enlarged it to the size of a bus, the legs would just immediately snap. That you're squaring the area, but you're cubing the volume. And likewise, which that's not unreasonable. If you're going to be the size of an elephant, you have to be built like an elephant, which is with stumpy, short, thick, load-bearing legs. And the idea that a spider could be the size of an elephant and still walk around like a spider is just ridiculous. But the converse is also true, and that's like the Incredible Shrinking Man. Once you took a human down to like this size and he kept his proportions, he would have so much strength that he'd rip his arms off. Because you look at how much ants can carry relative to their size, that's because the total weights of what they carry is actually very small. And an ant is able to carry something with essentially just sticks. If you took a human and scaled him down, he'd be Jack LaLanne. So there's that. Let's see back to the question here. How much people lie, how you can lie to the audience. And as he said, nobody watching Spider-Man cares, nobody watching them cares, nobody watches The Incredible Shrinking Man and cares, because that's not what we're there for. We're not there to listen to a science lecture. There are many good times to go listen to a science lecture, but not in the movies. However, the distaste for modern Hollywood girl boss trope suggests that there is a point when suddenly people start to care. Why do you think this is? At first pass, both of these are examples of someone exhibiting physical power that is not real, but we cheer at one and roll our eyes at the other. P.S. If your new workflow allows, would you be willing to consider live talks with some membership tiers? I'd be happy to consider live talks with any membership tier. I don't want to pile more on your plate, but I recall you mentioning something along those lines a while back. We did it once or twice, I think. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Let's go to this girl boss thing. So why is it that people have no problem believing in a giant spider, but do have a problem believing that? I keep coming back to Natalie Portman. That Natalie Portman can throw a hammer that weighs more than she does. And the reason is that nobody's ever seen a giant spider, and no one's ever seen Spider-Man, no one's ever seen a werewolf, no one's ever been in space aboard something like the Nostromo. Nobody questioned the gravity on the Nostromo. Nobody even thought to question the gravity on this Nostromo. And you didn't need to explain the gravity on the Nostromo because it was a horror movie. But we know in the real world we have experience with some of these things. Whenever I see these women warriors leading the way into combat, with their faces all greasy and and they got their tough guy pose and they're holding a rifle like they've held a rifle before in their lives, and they're kicking down doors and they're the first one into the dark rooms. I think my personal experience with women has been that when there's a spider in the bathroom, I get the call. And I have not found any exceptions to that. I'm not saying that there aren't men who don't freak out and call women to get a spider out of the bathroom. I am saying that those women, generally speaking, don't want to have anything to do with those guys. So whenever I see these movies where it's there's males and females in the group, and the female is with the lantern going first into the dungeon or whatever, I've just never experienced that, ever. And I don't know anybody else who's experienced it either. And when I watch real people behave, I don't see that. Likewise, when I see people, see, here's the thing about men. Men do adventurous things. And one of the reasons that men do adventurous things is because they're wired to. And the reason they're wired to is that nature can afford to make mistakes with males, but you can't afford to make mistakes with females. One male can impregnate any number of females, tens of thousands. So you can chuck away 90% of the male population, and as far as evolution is concerned, reproduction is concerned, no big loss. So nature has equipped males to be more adventurous and more stupid. I'm not saying the two things are the same, but I am saying it's impossible to imagine Jackass as a group of women. It's impossible to imagine that. In fact, I can't believe I haven't thought of this example before. It is impossible to imagine Jackass as a group of women. In fact, it's even impossible to imagine a single woman in Jackass, because they're not so stupid. But I admire the guys in Jackass so much. I think Johnny Knoxville's one of the greatest guys in the world. I admire them so much. And the reason I admire them so much is because their basic attitude is that pain is temporary, but glory is permanent. I watch them and I feel like I should be that daring, I just really, really admire them. And I admire how much fun they're having, and I admire how much fun they're having when they get hurt. I really, really just really admire them. And so there's clearly a line between, hold my beer, and then the guy explodes, his lawnmower and is blown to smithereens, versus you stay here, I'll go see what's in the basement with the flashlight. But it's the same dynamic. Lady Janie says, I must be a woman because I think Jackass is so dumb and I don't get it at all, LOL. No, women don't get it. They can't, they're not supposed to get it. They're not supposed to get it because it is dumb. It's intended to be stupid. And only men understand this. This is why there are no female fans of the Three Stooges. I'm trying to think if I can explain the appeal of Jackass other than to say that I think this has got something to do with it. Male bonding is a really interesting dynamic, and it's predicated on shared hardship. even modern male bonding, which deals with almost no hardship, is finally predicated on that. And I think it's one of the reasons why there are so few real friends in modern generations, because there's very few hardships. But there's something about shared hardship. Certainly, the people who've been in combat together form bonds that never ever expire. That those were the best friends they ever had or ever will have, because of what they went through together. And I think that's a big part of it with things like Jackass. Those guys respect each other and love each other because they're all willing to go through intense pain for nothing other than the fun of it. I think, I mean, the classic Jackass image that was on the cover of a bunch of their, at least on one of their videos, was they built that giant shopping cart, and they've got 7 or 8 guys in this shopping cart that's going downhill like really, really fast, and they know that they're going to crash, and they know it's going to hurt, but they're having the time of their lives. And I think probably what it comes down to for me is kind of a contempt for pain, and I admire that a lot. I've developed a contempt for pain, having been in 6-7 hours of intense pain twice in my life. I'm not keen to do it again, but I'm not afraid of it either. So first time chat from P7 2017. Well, hello. Well, hello to you as well. I just see those guys, and what it is I want to be one of them. I wouldn't mind doing some of the potentially painful stuff, some of it, but the disgusting stuff I don't think I could get through. But they're just being boys, and most boys, at least boys my age, have some experience with this. I've told the story before. I just like the story a lot. When I was in Bermuda, we were probably 7 or 8 years old, and bikes were everything when you're that age. So we all had choppers, and we all had the big handlebars and the sissy bars in the back, and just cruising around on our bikes. And just a couple of houses down from us was a real steep driveway, and at the bottom of the driveway it curved around towards the house, and that left probably a 2 or 3 foot berm that led out to an open field. And so a bunch of us got to the top of this driveway, and we'd start hauling ass down this driveway, and instead of making the turn to the house, it was like a custom-built ski jump. And I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression. I wasn't like one of the guys leading these charges. I would be like, I'd be one of the guys that would apply the brakes and just kind of go over the hill. But some kids were making, like these big jumps, and I'll never forget this. I was sitting at the bottom of the hill on my copper-colored chopper, and I watched this kid who I didn't know very well come hauling ass down that driveway. I mean, really pedaling hard. I mean, just really standing on the pedals, getting as much speed as he could. And then instead of just going over the thing, I would go over the thing and just kind of, bump it over. But this guy went to the berm, and he pulled up really hard on the handlebars, and the front wheel of that bike just went sailing through the air. And it was one of those slow motion experiences for me, because I remember it so clearly. I remember that guy pulling back. I remember the bike going up. I remember the wheel just departing and flying through the air. And I remember I had enough time. This must have happened in a second or two, no longer than 2 seconds. But that was long enough for me to realize that when the fork, the front of the bike that held the wheel, when that fork hits the grass, that's going to be problematic. And that's exactly what happened. This kid went sailing through the air. He came down on the front where the front wheel should be. The fork of the front wheel dug into this wet dirt. It was muddy. Dug in, and he immediately went ass over tea kettle and went face first into the grass. In fact, my memory of it is that he went so hard into the grass that there was like a little dent in the ground where his face hit. And he got up, and the first thing he said was, "How's my bike?" And that's exactly right. I got in a bike wreck, and that was my first. I was driving along with my 4 friends. I've told the story 100 times. I'll tell it again. It's because I like it. Driving along with some friends, probably 14, 15 years old. I lived on Key Biscayne. We rode our bikes from there to the planetarium. And then from the planetarium, we met 2 other friends, and we rode all the way out to the Dade County Youth Fair. So that's probably a bike trip about 25, 30 miles. It's a significant bike trip. And we're on this back street behind the planetarium. It's just this kind of a completely sealed off road. And the 4 of us are riding together. We all got, 10 speeds by now. And my friend Steve was talking about his bike was green. That's his favorite color. And he would say, this is the green goblin or whatever. And he started describing his bike, and he said, talking about green this and green that, And so somebody else picks it up, and they start talking about their bike and how great their bike was. And I had a silver bike with blue tape on the handle, on the U-shaped handlebars, and little red detail down by the forks. So I'm riding along, and we're all just doing our guy thing. And I said, okay, I'm on the on the silver streak or whatever the hell I called it. And I said, and I got these bitchin' blue handlebars, and then I pointed down, and I said, and I got these red trim here on the front wheel. So I went down there to tap them with my foot, and I tapped them with my foot, but I tapped them hard enough so that my foot went into the spokes, went into the spokes, went all the way around, hit the fork, and locked the front wheel up completely, instantly, like that. And next thing I know, I'm flying through the air, and I land upside down on my head on the asphalt, and then my bike falls on top of me like a shield, and then the guy behind me rides over me, using me and my bike as a jump ramp. And I got up, and the first thing I said was, is my bike okay? It was because I was okay. I was just concerned that my bike was broken. I wouldn't be able to go on this trip. Is my bike okay? I just admire that. I don't know. It's to me it's like it's anti-neurotic. It's almost like the cure for being neurotic. It's like, okay, I was pretty scuffed up, and I'd bang my head and scraped an elbow or something like that. Just shake that off, and it's a great story, and I've been telling it pretty much my whole life because it's true. I remember every second of it. I can still visualize being underneath that bike and watching this friend of mine just come whoop like that. G7 2017 says, sheesh, I had a Schwinn 2-speed. Eddie Strummins was always mad that I was faster than he was on his Stingray. Oh, my Stingray. I had a Stingray. That's a Stingray. Yes. Thanks for saying that word. That's what I was looking for, a Stingray chopper. And then they had that one. Yeah, Stingray. That just badass bike. Steve Whoop had a Stingray. Everybody had a Stingray. How could you not have a Stingray? Let me see if I can find a picture of a Stingray for those of you benighted souls who missed out. Yeah. Let's bring back happy memories. This, dear viewer, is a Schwinn Stingray. Come on. Okay, let's try it the other way. Do it. Okay, hang on. We're getting there. I'm showing this thing. If it's the end of me, I mean it. All right. What if I put it down here? Will you like it here? No. Oh, because it's the wrong type. Okay. Hang on. I need a JPEG. That's a Stingray. Let's see if that's it. Yes, this should work. Yeah, there we go. Look how badass that thing is. Hang on, YouTube. That's a Stingray. And sometimes you would have an enlarged sissy bar in the back, which would go all halfway up your back. But that thing was just cool. And I don't know if there was even gears on that thing. I don't even remember. sometimes they had like a shifter in the middle, like a car shifter, which made you especially badass. It looks like got gearing back there somehow. But yeah, you would just feel like a boss riding that thing. And and they had small wheels, so you could really maneuver. You could really turn that thing in tight little circles. And we used to play like dogfights with each other on our bikes, so you could get the inside turn and pull some G's on some bad guy. But that was just really fun. And that silver, and if you're a kid, your boy anyway, that's freedom, man, and you're on your way. Go wherever you want to. You go all the way out to the Dade County Youth Fair if you want to, and I miss it. I miss the whole ethic. I would rather be 20 in the 70s than be 70 in the 20s. That's the truth. But anyway, yeah, it's impossible to and the reason why I think Janie and other women have a hard time understanding this, and I just don't know if there's any other explanation that makes sense to me. I think one of the reasons they have a hard time explaining this is that they get hurt more easily than men do, or than boys do. They're not as strong, and they're not as tough, and things hurt more, I would imagine, because I was flying a kite in the front of my yard with my dad, and our house had a drop off, which to me was probably 15 feet, but in reality was probably closer to 6. And he's on the top of the hill, and I'm running downhill, and I'm looking at the kite, so I'm running backwards. And my dad starts pointing, and I said, "What?" And he starts pointing and screaming, and I'm just so focused on the kite. And the next thing you know, I'm just lying on my back and just looking up at the sky, and then the kite goes flittering down. And I went right over this thing backwards and just fell 6 feet flat on my back like that. It didn't hurt at all. It was just like, okay. Oh, I see. You were trying to stop me from falling off the cliff, Dad. Is that what you were gesticulating about? I think that's probably what I said. Is that what you were gesticulating about, Father? Yeah, dumbass. Just ran yourself right off a cliff. And I didn't feel a thing. So, I don't know. I'll tell you one thing. I can remember when Lady Jane says maybe pain doesn't interest us as such because we have periods and babies. Pain is built in. Yeah, exactly. That's what's great about this chassis. It doesn't have to do anything really delicate or useful. That's why nature can basically chuck us away and wire us to do things like jackass. But this is tied into the question, which is why I don't believe it when women are kicking indoors and punching guys out. It's not true. It has no truth in it. And so, like I said, I've never seen a 40-foot spider, but I have had some experience with women, and they are not door kicker downers. And so the whole thing's a lie, and everybody who's seen it knows on some level it's a lie. I saw not too long ago, I guess it was during the Olympics, I saw I suppose these were probably college level gymnasts. They certainly weren't Olympic gymnasts, but they were female gymnasts, and they were terrific gymnasts. And what they're doing is just incredible. And they kicked the snot out of me. But then they tried men's gymnastics, and they tried to get up on the parallel bars, just like the vault, and then the guys just hold themselves by their arms, and then they just basically power themselves up and then stand up upside down. And these are advanced female gymnasts, and they just couldn't do it. They get up there and their arms would just collapse, and they were looking at this guy like he's from Mars. Like, where the hell how do you do that? It's testosterone, baby. So anyway, that's why I don't believe and that's why I think people have had enough of this, because that's the definition of woke, right? Woke is telling you something that you know is not true. That's pretty much consistently it. It's telling you that isn't true, and they're telling you this in order to change your mind. It's like, here, you're supposed to believe this, but I don't believe it, and stop trying to convince me of something I know isn't true. If I lived in a world where there were 40-foot spiders and they just collapsed under their own spindly weight, then I wouldn't believe 40-foot spiders either, but I don't have that thing to compare it to. So that's what strikes me as different about that. Okay, let's see what we got here. Chris Taylor. Sorry if this is late, but I've been on summer vacation. Fair enough. Your friend Zoe doesn't say iron sharpens iron. Proverbs 27:17 does. Zoe just quoted Proverbs and likely assumes that everyone else is as literate as he is. You should watch the coming psychological Black Death by Gen Z historian YouTuber What If All This? I don't know if it's supposed to be What If Atheist, but it's What If All This? I know you try to avoid other YouTubers. I don't. I just try to avoid political conservative YouTubers. I like to watch all kinds of YouTubers. I know you try to avoid other YouTubers to avoid groupthink, but this is not the same as your approach. He talks about his generation, compares its features to the community-based mental health attitudes of Middle Ages Romans and the 19th century tyrannies. It'll give you an interesting picture from inside Gen Z. It reminds me of the Gibson quote about the future already being here but not evenly distributed yet. That's a profound, I'd never heard that before. I'd recommend everyone else listen to any of the recent joint interviews with Michael Yan and Matt Bracken, but not you, Bill. Not only would it contaminate your own train of thought, it would distract you from watching 1, 2, 3. So what cool things have you found that you haven't posted in ephemera lately? I have been certainly tardy with ephemera, and I need to move it to the forefront of my mind because I've seen a couple of cool things that should be in there, and I just basically forgot. I saw some. We did that AI film, Pokey Park, which was terrifying. That was almost a year ago, and since then, there has been such an advance in AI movies that I've seen a couple of AI films that had the most beautiful women I'd ever seen in my life, and they were photoreal. They just didn't exist. It just unbelievable because the AI is taking it's creating people that can't exist. For the same reason we were talking about this before on Stratosphere Lounge, these women have had all these partners, and this guy's really funny, and this guy's really brave, and this guy's really strong, and this guy's really good in bed, and this guy plays music, and this guy does, and they're looking for the guy who's their dream guy who's got all these things together, but that person doesn't exist. It just, life doesn't work that way. Nobody gets all the presents. But this was able to create people that aren't real, couldn't be real, and were just phenomenal. I really like watching, there's a number of them out there where they take a modern movie and they do it like as 1950s Panavision, and everything's real retro. That's kind of cool. Trying to think of anything that was really, wake-up call worthy. I'll tell you one thing, after you watch a couple of AI movies, just like 2 or 3. There's like, you ever seen that optical illusion where, something to the effect of you see like the same pattern repeating, and you watch it for a minute, you're staring at the black dot, the pattern repeats. Then you look at the wall, and then you can see the same pattern. Watching AI movies like that for me is like that. I'll watch 3 or 4 of them, and then when I watch the next non-AI real video, I'm suddenly extremely suspicious of it. Like, all of it is like, I don't know about that. I'm expecting the weird, but AI visually is evolving so fast. The classic example, if you want to look it up, is I think a year ago they tried to do Will Smith eating spaghetti, and it was from a bad acid trip. And 1 year later, it looks like Will Smith eating spaghetti. 1 year. So, it's moving real fast, which reminds me, I need to look at a video. I just glanced at it, but it's basically doing what I want to do for the colonies, and I don't want to do for Major Mace Mattingly. I like those guys the way they are, but basically what it was doing, I think it was doing it automatically, was it taking a CG character and then putting deepfake face on it, and it looks completely real. I'm tempted to get it now. I guess I'll download it for next week, because it's going to take me 10 minutes to find it and download it and post it. I'll try and have it by next week. But this is the solution to me. AI does worse with hard surface things. It's always something just a little off about the way they're moving. But AI now has a place where human faces they're 100% believable because they're photographic images. And that's always the weakness of CGI. So my plan for the colonies is to combine these two things, get the best of both worlds, because hard surface stuff like, cranes and spaceships and stuff looks really, really, really good with CGI. And I cannot imagine, I'm sure the software will come, but right now I cannot imagine directing a scene, let alone a movie, through prompts. A handsome blonde man in a medieval shiny suit of armor with a red scarf is climbing a hill with, I can see doing a shot that way, but how you would do a whole scene that way, I don't know. One of the things that is important that I've seen as a breakthrough is that AI is now beginning to remember characters. So that's really an important part of that. If you can say, this is the face I want, keep this face and body and this outfit. Now take that into a new scene I'm going to describe. That's a big step forward. Sadwings Raging says Taffy 3. Taffy 3 there's some really great water effects. I've seen, there was a guy who I had on, he's still out there. I don't know if he was using World of Warships ships, but he was doing animations of naval vessels, World War II naval vessels. And to me, they looked really, really, really good. Really, really good. So some of the water simulations are getting to be fantastic. In fact, everything's fantastic except for the human face. And even that is getting to be pretty good when you do the metahumans are good for CG characters, but they're not. When you photo map a person's face and then you capture their skin and all of the little details and the moles and everything, I think that's nearly indistinguishable. It's getting better all the time, which is encouraging. So we'll see. And we've got an Eric Blake, and I think that'll do it. Eric Blake, may the force be with you, Master Whittle, and to you as well. So today, Bill, I once again am vindicated all the time. You may recall some time ago when I described the civil war on Lucasfilm between the Kathleen Kennedy faction and the Dave Filoni faction, that I predicted that KK's Force's female pet project, the Acolyte, run by Harvey Weinstein ally Leslie Headland, who incidentally was the woman directly responsible for the push to fire Gina Carano. Yeah, she's a master filmmaker. Would not last beyond the first season. Well, lo and behold, Bill, after the hubris-ridden chicken counting from Headland about what projects she'd love to do, it's been officially announced that the Acolyte Season 2 has been canceled. It's about frickin' time. It's the worst thing that has ever been put out under the name of Star Wars. It's unbearably, unspeakably bad. And I haven't seen a single episode. I've just seen the clips and Drinker and stuff, and it's unspeakably bad. It's such a bludgeon, which is the exact opposite of what storytelling should be. You should not, if there's a message in storytelling, you shouldn't know about the message till the drive home. But this bludgeoning of, here's the Force created these two twins from two women. These two women gave birth to these two twins who are, of course, Mary Sue 1 and Mary Sue 2, and they're both capable of doing anything, and it's not the Force anymore, it's the thread, and the power of one, the power of two, the power of many, this whole collectivist kind of, chicks at a yoga session kind of thing. It just, no, I don't buy it. And of course the Jedi are the bad guys, they're the ones rounding up the children and taking them off to slavery. So that's Kathleen Kennedy, who's pissed off at having to get coffee for George Lucas and has decided she's going to destroy Star Wars as a result, and she's done it. On a side note, I should point out that the show played so ridiculously loose with all the pre-established facts of the Star Wars canon, it essentially decanonizes itself. That's a clever observation. Now, this should come as little surprise with how canonically illiterate the cast was during the publicity tour, but even the writers clearly didn't bother to do much research. No, they're lazy. They're lazy, and they're too lazy to learn about Star Wars, but a good writer only learns about Star Wars that he needs from the Star Wars Bible, which should be available, And the Star Trek Bible basically said, the ship is called the Enterprise. It's capable of traveling faster than light. This is called warp speed, and warp 7 is faster than warp 8. We have things called transporters that allow people to move from the ship to the surface instantaneously. It's just a list of the rules of Star Trek. It's not anything about the story at all, just the rules. And a good writer could write a good Star Trek story with only having seen the Bible, because the rules were clear and there was no violation of those rules. I don't think they did this in the original series. I'm virtually positive they did not, but I'm not 100% positive. I'm almost positive. A great example of breaking the rule, which I think, again, once you break a canonical rule, you have repercussions downstream that never go away. I don't believe in the original series they ever beamed somebody to a place other than the transporter room. But I know for a fact they did it in Next Generation, so they would say, beam him to the bridge, or, it'd be like, what the hell do you need a transporter room for? You want the special effect of something, and you're destroying the fabric of the story. If you can beam somebody directly to the bridge, then why do you have a transporter room? You wanted a cheap special effect. I would have much preferred if you had done it magically, if it's been some advanced super being who just, like in Star Trek, just faded in, surrounded by a little sprinkly halo. Nobody's calling that the transporter room. And so they were true to their own writer's guide, and they weren't dicking around with the basics. These were the rules of the universe. Now go tell some stories. And they told some great stories about characters and friendship and things like that. And once you'd established the relationship, between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, you were good to go. You had when I wrote 4 spec scripts for Cheers. None of them were produced, and that's fine. It was their last season, so I didn't get a chance to do next season. I think if there had been a next season, I think I would have gotten one produced, because they were pretty happy with me as a story writer and as a joke writer. But I did 4 spec scripts for Cheers, which are unpaid scripts that are designed to show the writers that maybe they should give you a paid script. But all 4 of those scripts had the same format. They had a Frasier story as the A story, and they had a Cliff story as the B story, because Frasier and Cliff, to me, were the most interesting characters on the show. And by the time I got to it, which is in their last season, the characters genuinely wrote themselves. I mean, you had to have a certain amount of wit, but Cliff wrote himself, and Frasier too, and that whole dynamic. And I remember one of the lines I wrote was, I think the B plot was Woody gets a job. He's an actor, and Woody gets an acting job as a mailman and wants to follow Cliff around for the day so he can pick up some of the mailman stuff. And Cliff is initially reluctant because you can't just walk in and be a mailman. These are the special forces of the government. And Woody says something like, "But Mr. Clavin, I've learned so much from you already. I learned that the Eiffel Tower was never completed after World War I due to a shortage of plaster. I learned that the bee is the smallest living relative of the dinosaur." All of this Cliff kind of stuff that is absolutely wrong, but Cliff is just giving that stuff out. And once you got a character that's that defined, it just writes itself. I'd love to write an original series episode. In fact, I should give that serious thought. And this is why I thought Vic Mignogna did such a great job. He clearly understood the rules, and he clearly loved it, and he shot it in 4:3, which I think was the single most bold thing he did. He lit it like Star Trek. His Kirk is phenomenal. There are times when I would watch Star Trek Continues, and I just think it's Shatner, and it's like, ooh, he was just phenomenal. He didn't have the supporting cast that he needed, and a couple of the scripts were a little PC, but man, there's no fan film project that's even touching this or ever will. because it was just so beautiful. Hey there, Normie. Yeah. I think one of the episodes I wrote was the B plot was it's like an eclipse or something coming up. I pitched it to these guys, and I said, have you ever done an episode where Cliff really, really needs something urgently in the mail? And they just started thinking about that, and they started laughing. And they said, no, I'll run with that. That sounds like it's got some potential, because he thinks the U.S. mail is the be-all and end-all, and there was something where he needed like a filter to watch this eclipse, and he's waiting for this thing to get delivered, and the damn mail is so slow, and he tries to break into the mail headquarters and all kinds of things. So it was a while ago. All right, so let's see if there's anything left of Eric's questions, because I think that'll do it. On a side note, I should point out that the show decanonized itself. Writers clearly didn't do much research. Thus, despite a tease at the end of the season finale of what you all wanted to see from the beginning, Headland and crew have shot themselves in the feet in making what, in the end, just amounted to bad fanfare and nothing else. Yeah. In other words, as I've said to all the Star Wars fans panicking that the show was destroying everything, how it destroyed itself. Well, it can't be unseen. Add to all of this, of course, Gino's lawsuit coming in, and it seems like the Force is indeed with us after all. Maybe. I saw, I don't remember the name of it. It's like Star Wars for kids. It's like almost like a children's Star Wars thing. And the first comment below it was, in space, no one can see that you just don't give a damn. I don't know. Well, obviously, we disagree about this and continue to disagree about it, but I'm trying to imagine what it would take for me to watch a new Star Trek, because Brave New Worlds was supposed to be like a throwback to the original series, and Christopher Pike, just before the time of Kirk on the Enterprise, and once they did the musical, it's like, okay, all right, got it. And the Spock they have on Strange New Worlds, he's so awful. He's just so normal looking. Looks like a barista at Starbucks. They put him on, put a pointy ear on him. He's absolutely charisma free. He's a plank of wood, as Critical Drinker likes to say. It's just horribly bad. But anyway, that's that. Now I have a whole bunch of super chats to get to, and then I think that'll do it for the night. So excuse me while I do some strolling and some scrolling here. I go way up, way up, way up to the top. Keep going. I hope I didn't miss any. I take this seriously. If I did miss one, I'm very sorry. There's one from Logic for a couple bucks, just no attached to it. Thank you very much. I think it's the first time there. John Eden with a crazy, again, every week, a $99 super chat. Thank you very much. No question attached, just a huge donation. Thank you. There's Lapgo for $1.23, as in 123. Clever boy. I see what you did there. Trinity Waters is with a 124 donation to probably top Lapco's 123 donation. She may not have realized the fact that that's a film that I need to watch. Peter Cole is up in the ante with $2. Thank you. I'll take it. I appreciate it. It said good stuff. Thank you. Lapco 92 again. Jackass is a great example of why we shouldn't have free universal health care as well. I'm paying for enough idiots through government payroll. Amen. And yeah, no, that's another thing about it. It's like you take the risk, you pay the penalty. I think one of the things I liked about Jackass was I never, I'm not sure this is true, but I never believed that any of them would sue the producers. Yeah, I agreed to do the show and do crazy stunts and everything, but I really hurt myself, and so I'm going to sue the producers, because I think that guy, if he did that, would never be able to face not only his friends, but I don't think he'd ever face a man again. It's like, oh, you got in a show that paid you to hurt yourself, and you hurt yourself a bunch for money, and now you hurt yourself real bad this time, so now you're going to sue. That's not It's not how things are done. LiveCode 92 again. I keep meaning to sign up as a member on the website, but I keep forgetting. It's strange. It's easy as 123. Can you help? Oh my gosh, it's in the back room there. It's better be the greatest film ever made. And LiveCode 92 again. Watching a lot of old samurai movies lately, much better than almost all modern stuff, which is weird. As a white male, I can't see myself in a non-diverse, non-feminist setting. Funny that, isn't it? Yeah, I saw Seven Samurai when I was a student in film school, and I loved the movie, although Sad Wings Raging, did I miss you? He's got Psy left out again. I'm looking for an answer from Sad Wings Raging because I don't want anybody sighing in the comment section. It's just not good business. If you had a question, let me know, and I'll do with it. Yeah, it's got my full attention now. Yeah, I was watching Seven Samurai, and I loved the movie, even though I didn't see myself on screen, so I couldn't really relate to it as much as I wanted to because there was no representation. What an absurd idea that is, you know? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I've always found that to be ridiculous. Yeah, Logic says if division by race, gender, religion, and everything is progressive, then can we regress a bit? Yes. This is my king of the hill theory. When there's legal segregation and a bunch of other things, then I'm a liberal. And I'm a liberal until we reach maximum human happiness. At which point, when you continue, happiness goes down. I call this my king of the hill theory. All the conservatives I know want to basically freeze things at maximum human potential, and they don't want to just keep going as things get worse and worse and worse. And Lynn D for 500 yen. Did you see the Yarn Hub war animation videos I asked Shelly to tell you about? No, I didn't, and I missed Shelly today. But I'm looking forward to catching up on that because that sounds cool. Yarn Hub war animation. Let me do a quick search for that. And I'll put this tab up and we'll watch it because that was the last question. About time to go home here. Yarn Hub. Let me try that again. Yarn Hub. Oh, wow. Oh, this is great. Yeah, I see what they're doing here. They're doing machinimas and talk about, like, it looks like Audie Murphy and things like that. Cool. Yeah, these are called machinimas, where you use a game engine and you basically get inside and use it to generate movie scripts. Oh, this looks really cool. I'll check it out. That sounds great. Okay, and everybody looks like they're cool, so I think we'll call this one a day. You probably know by now, but this show is made possible by members of BillWhittle.com, and we're very grateful for their support over the years and continue to be grateful for their support. So that'll do it for this show, and I guess we will see you Thursday night for the Stratosphere Lounge. So we'll say goodbye to our friends on YouTube. Goodbye, YouTube.